Hello, in this video we're going to be talking about part 1, functions of the brain. So let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now, I know we already had a video where we talked about structure and functions of each of the areas, and we did that. This one is more functions of the internal nature, whatever, or tracking, learning how to track or to watch. Much like what you see on the screen here, this is obviously a lady who's had an EEG, okay, which is obviously different than an EKG, but it's the idea of monitoring brain waves. And again, reference the Big Bang Theory in an earlier video, but this one too. There are a couple of good episodes where they reference monitoring brain activities by having the pad, put on there so they can see what area of the brain is being stimulated. And there's a real funny one where Sheldon is trying to what's the right word? Make his brain work in the most precise or efficient manner as possible, where he's using different sounds to keep him on edge and all that kind of good stuff, and he constantly wears monitors and things. And anyway, so that's pretty funny. If you watch that show, you know what I'm talking about. But you can see that with an EEG, there are 4 main types of waves, and it's the alpha waves that you typically see in a movie or a show, where they're considered the brain's alive, and all of a sudden it goes flatline, it's not dead. And the same thing with the heart, which is the EKG. But each of those waves kind of cover a different topic or a topic or different process. And we're not going to worry so much about what each of them control or monitor. We just want to talk about it in a general setting. Of course, you can use these to see which area isn't working as efficiently as possible, and then that gives you an idea of where to look for potential problems. Again, sorry about that. Sometimes the thing jumps on me or I click on the wrong one and I got to figure out where I am. But again, monitoring brain waves, and of course this can tell you things, if there's something going wrong, where it might be, where it'd be. But a lot of it has been known or established with what's going on over the years. And of course, the flat line, that's the brain death. That's what you see to showcase no longer living. And of course, there's the lines, the waves that mean more activity. So if they're shorter, then the less activity is going on. Alright, so some things that could be happening that would cause those waves to be taller. Things like cognition, things like memory, things like emotions. Again, speaking of emotions, a good episode where Amy is showing a chimpanzee different pictures, and it's got all the monitors on, and she's able to register response rates from different parts of the brain. Pleasant things, happy things, scary things, and what's going on. And so it's a pretty cool field. Maybe you'll choose to get into that. But cognition, as we know from a psychological standpoint, the idea of understanding, and not just self or whatever, but the idea of being able to process information. And just people are different. Some people are science and logical processes, where they're list makers. Everything is a series of figuring out the puzzle through steps and investigation and everything. And others are artistic, to where they don't worry too much about other things, but man, they're great at being able to decipher the language of music and paint and the dance and everything. So it's all about being able to understand and perceive and to process all that stuff, or different things. But unfortunately, let me back up here. The way we know a lot about what things do and where things happen haven't come because of the studying normal brains. Because if you don't have a blue key, you don't know what's going on. And unfortunately, that key or that blueprint that we do have now has come at the expense of unfortunately, particular or certain people who have had things happen to them, injuries, bad things with their head injuries, and based on where they were injured and what they no longer can do, that's how scientists have been able to piece together this brain map. And a famous one that we're going to look at now is this Phineas Gage, and obviously that's a colored cartoon computer generated image. But simply, it was with a work accident and had a steel rod, as you can see, go through his upper cheek and into his brain. And when that happened, the person that Phineas was after that was completely different. As you can see there, just angry and low control over functions and not functions, but anger and rage and fitfulness and fighting and things, and so there was a deduction that because that's the area of his brain was injured, that must have controlled those areas, and that process began to unfold from then. And there just have been many people who have unfortunately suffered injuries, and then based on what they can no longer do or control or how it's changed, the rationale is that is what controlled those particular areas. Alright, so our next one, memory. The hippocampus is super important area of memory forming, and kind of organizes them. And the short term are stored here permanently. Oh, we don't want to check out that app right there, so we'll close that. But the hippocampus has the short term, but the long term memories, the cerebral cortex, and of course these are in different places, obviously. And people get to a certain age where the short term starts to fail a little bit. I'm a huge list maker. And if I don't make a list, if it's not on that list, I can leave my house and get a grocery list, and she says, "Oh yeah, give me this too." There's an 80% chance that "give me this too" doesn't get home, because I get there and now my science brain takes over, and I'm focused on my list. I'm focused on the map of the store to make the most efficient walk through, and sometimes that "get me this too" stuff just doesn't make it, because it isn't on the list, it isn't in front of me, and the short-term memory, boom, it's gone, and everything else. So, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I go back. Sometimes I'm halfway home and I remember it, and then I go back. But hippocampus, short-term memory; cerebral cortex, long-term memory. And when it comes to emotions, the amygdala, as you can see there, a lot of that is sensory input, and just somehow, and again, I certainly couldn't tell you. Don't even want to pretend that I know enough about the brain to fully understand how this would work. I've opened up a lot of them, and again, I wish we could see some circuitry. I wish we could see some hardware, hard drive, and then I would have a much more easier time understanding the processes. So you don't have to worry about being an expert, because I know I'm not either, but there are some things that we do need to know, or make sure that we do know about the brain. Amygdala is also, things like music, things that refer to the senses, bad odors, foul taste, beautiful things that we would just have a response to, and the emotions would happen here. Well, that's our video over the first set of functions of the brain. When we come back, we'll talk about part 2. We'll see you then.